Coach Beauchene back here, continuing on with Bill Bradley's Values of the Game. Really just starting off. We read the book sleeve last time, and flipping the page, just one page, this picture comes up. Just want you to reflect on that picture a little bit and try to think about why it might be chosen as the first image we see. What it means to you. And we'll come back to it. Bill Bradley, Values of the Game. This installment, we're going to read the official introduction to the book. Foreword, written by Bill Bradley's teammate, two-time NBA champion as a basketball player, 11-time NBA champion as a basketball coach, the most decorated individual in the history of professional basketball, Coach Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson and Bill Bradley played together in the heyday when Madison Square Garden was the Mecca, when Willis Reed battled Lou Alcindor underneath the hoop, now known much better as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, where Tiny Archibald and Walt Frazier and Willis Reed, stars, superstars, learned how to play together and sacrifice for a common goal. The foreword by Phil Jackson follows this content list that I wanted to share with you, just to give you a heads up of what it is that we're going to be reading over the course of this book. Bill Bradley broke down his memoir here, Values of the Game, into 10 chapters or essays that talk about 10 separate topics: passion, discipline, selflessness, respect, perspective, courage, leadership, responsibility, resilience, and imagination. Just hearing those 10 individual words and trying to picture the images and the messages and the lessons that we're going to learn through them over the course of this book gets me excited. It gets me excited to learn about this man and also to learn more about basketball and life through this story. So, without further ado, let's get into the book itself. It starts off with a dedication by Bill Bradley, and it's very important to share because every great basketball player, every average basketball player, every basketball player has had relationships with coaches. And Bill Bradley wanted to take the time in his dedication to speak on some of the coaches that influenced him. And I'll read that for you. For my coaches, all of whom loved the game: Jerry Ryan, Arvil Pop, Eddie Donovan, Butch Van Bredikoff, Hank Iba, Cesar Rubini, Dick McGuire, Red Holzman, and for those who helped along the way: Ed McCauley, Jerry West, Hank Raymonds, Red Auerbach, John McClendon, and Sonny Hill. Now to the foreword, written by Phil Jackson. Bill Bradley came from the Air Force to the New York Knicks in December 1967, my first year in the NBA. He tried to be just another guy, but everyone wanted a piece of him. It was not hard to see why. There was the big contract, $500,000 for 4 years, and the oversized expectations of New York fans that he would lead a Knicks revival. And then there was us, his Knicks teammates, wondering if this smart guy from Princeton and Oxford was indeed the real deal. He was, in more ways than I realized at the time. Bill brought with him the right work ethic, coming to practice early and staying late to work on his game. But what we didn't anticipate was his ability to adapt his game to whatever the Knicks needed for the team to succeed. He moved from guard to forward, his position when we won the championships in 70 and 73, and from a great scorer to a role player. His ego remained undamaged, even though he was no longer the star or the man, because he understood the essence of the Knicks team game, that one guy couldn't carry the load alone. Bill won us over, off the court too. As the team representative to the Players' Union, which negotiated labor agreements with the league, he brought this same adaptability, a sense of how to get things accomplished, even if he wasn't at the helm, directing the action or receiving all the credit. At the time, Oscar Robertson was the president. Later in our years in the NBA, I became Bill's roommate on the road. I found myself carried along with his curious nature, his capacity to learn, an art museum in Houston, a shoreline visit in Oregon, a lecture in Boston. And so I found myself getting another education of sorts. Bill's grasp of our society, what makes it tick, and how business gets done, was really fascinating to watch. One summer, he accompanied me to Pine Ridge, South Dakota, to help conduct a basketball camp for the Oglala Sioux, which is a Native American tribe in South Dakota. After he arrived, Bill plunged into one of the most closed societies I know, and within 24 hours, he'd worked out the details of the tribe's power structure. So it wasn't surprising to me that when Bill took the floor of the U.S. Senate, he would bring along the same curiosity, the same group sensitivity, and the same determination to get things done that he first took to the floor of Madison Square Garden. Bill Bradley's value system is not only durable, it's portable. That's the essence of values of the game. Bill has long had a magnetism that has radiated beyond his own quiet nature. I first saw it 30 years ago at a sports banquet given in my honor in my hometown of Williston, North Dakota. I had asked Bill to be a speaker, and on short notice, he rearranged his schedule and made the long trek out to Williston on the Great Plains of North America. As Teddy Roosevelt had done 80 years earlier, he arrived with a knowledgeable enthusiasm, having taken the time to learn about the pioneers, cattle ranchers, and Native Americans. Bill's reputation as a leader and a Christian had prompted the local chapter of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes to seek him out. Bill took on the issue of spirituality with great ease. He spoke to them about the great responsibility to keep a personal set of values. The year was 1968, a time when nearly every institution in society was under question. After the banquet, I drove Bill back to the Plainsman Hotel, and we talked over the evening's events, about the FCA and his responsibility to meet other people's expectations. As a PK, preacher's kid, I was familiar with how those responsibilities sometimes conflicted with finding one's own way based on self-knowledge. Bill told me how his personal spiritual commitment had evolved, and how being young and wanting to do good sometimes got translated by others into trying to be godly. He said that with his education and upbringing, he was committed to finding some way to serve other people. But, importantly, he also said that being a public person didn't mean that you had to surrender the essence of who you were, that you couldn't let the public impose its expectations on your life, that you had to remain faithful to your own convictions and preserve a private space necessary for personal growth. Bill was 24, and I was 22 at the time, and looking back over the last 30 years, I've watched Bill's values hold steady through the changing landscape of our society. Values aren't something that can be donned or discarded like a used uniform. It seems strange to me that many of the readers of this book will know Bill mostly as a politician and never had the opportunity to see him play. Values of the game will give you an understanding of why Bill excelled and why basketball is a perfect arena from which to draw much bigger lessons. Yes, the game has changed a lot since we played. The three-point line. Small forwards at 6 feet 8 inches and 250 pounds. And player contracts the size of a small country's economy. But what Bill brought to the game, his industry, his leadership, his pure basketball intelligence, hasn't lost any relevance. And neither have the values, the insights, and the wisdom that he took from the game. He was always generous with the basketball, and I'm delighted that once again he's taken the opportunity to share the wealth. Phil Jackson, written in 1998. Which, for those of you who are watching The Last Dance right now, 1998 was the last year of the Bulls dynasty, the last of their 6 championships. So Phil Jackson, at the height of his power and prestige as a leader and a coach, took the time and was honored to write this foreword for a former teammate, friend, role model, and leader. So I'm glad that I was able to take the time to share that foreword with you. Next, we're going to move on to Chapter 1.